All right, I'm going to put you into like a little bit of a scenario here. I think Bitcoin mining, it's gotten a bit of a bad rap in the media.
You think so?
Just a little bit, just a little bit. In the media, you know, from governments, from corporations, but even on the individual level, it typically is the most common concern I encounter when I talk to people about Bitcoin for the first time, and it's usually coming from people that don't necessarily know a lot about Bitcoin. And they kind of see it as a black and white issue. You know, Bitcoin mining uses energy, therefore it's bad. And in an age where, you know, a lot of people are very dedicated toward, you know, climate action and reducing emissions and things like that, they see Bitcoin as counterproductive. They see Bitcoin as environmentally damaging. So when someone comes up to you and they say, Troy, Bitcoin mining is bad for the environment, what do you say back to them? Like, and let's assume they don't have a ton of knowledge on Bitcoin. Like, what's your response to something like that?
I mean, it's really hard. There are no magic words to say. I fully understand where people are coming from. Not only because I was there, but because I think I know why they think what they think. I mean, first of all, we have an industry that uses a lot of energy. It's extractive. And we know how industry acts. You never trust industry. You never trust them to tell the story about their own impact. They lie. Okay. Whenever you have a company or something that turns a natural resource into money, we have a way of thinking about that. It's extractive. It is zero sum. That's coming from someone else. And we know it's just greed. It's greed abusing the natural world. Okay, so the story is there, and then that story has been verified by journalists, by the New York Times and the Guardian, by a subset of academics, by a lot of the people who are cool and who are your friends, the people you trust. And so given that we validate ideas, especially ideas that are complex, socially, through like who supports those ideas, and via these other shortcuts like does this make overall sense in my vision of the world? It's going to be extremely hard to move someone. It's extremely hard in an elevator pitch to say, actually, I mean, you've already lost. I'm going to say, actually, no, you're done. There's no. It's almost like you're better off showing people what it does. So, for instance, the solar company I just mentioned, you can tour some homes, and you can see the build out of solar energy that wouldn't have happened without Bitcoin. Or you can see, I can take you to a flare gas site. That's probably going to freak them out, but if you think about what's happening at a flare gas site, when you drill for oil, there's this excess byproduct of natural gas, methane. Very often this natural gas is stranded far from a pipeline. And so we don't know what to do with it. It's really expensive to compress it and clean it and ship it. So people just burn it. That's what we do. Worse than burning it is just letting it go, because methane is like 84 times as warming as CO2 as a greenhouse gas. So we just light it on fire in 20-foot tall flares throughout the world. We burn 5 times as much energy in just burning gas into the air as the entire Bitcoin mining network uses. It's brutal. But Bitcoin miners come onto the scene. They take that gas, they run it through a generator, they generate electricity, they mine Bitcoin with it. They burn the gas very cleanly at 99% efficiency in an internal combustion engine rather than in a 20-foot tall open flame in the wind. And it's far less warming, actually. Oh, and then we can do that at another company I advise, does it on farms, building methane digesters to capture the methane from cow poop. And then they burn that methane, generate electricity, mine Bitcoin with it. They're selling most of the electricity back to the farmer, but then the excess electricity they use to mine Bitcoin. So it's methane that would otherwise have gone into the atmosphere is captured and burned. Oh, but are these just side cases? No. we look at where the big mining operations are happening in West Texas. West Texas is also where we have negative electricity pricing much of the time. Why? Because we have large renewable installations. West Texas is very windy and very sunny, and the land is cheap. So we've built a lot of wind farms and solar farms out there, and there's insufficient interconnection to send the electricity to big cities in eastern Texas. So we just have an excess out there, and those miners sit out there and use that excess electricity. Margot Paez is a friend of mine and another fellow at the Bitcoin Policy Institute along with me. We actually gathered data from 10 large miners in North America. We found that miners were shutting down their machines entirely between 5 and 30% of the time. And in that Texas market, it was closer to 30 than 5. So miners are running when the power is available from renewable energy, and they shut down when it's not available because they only mine when it's super cheap. So you just have to pull people into the examples like that. I can give you the philosophy of it. Mining is ultra competitive industry. For those of you miners here, I'm sorry. You're in a pure commodity business. It's absolutely freaking brutal. It's the most brutal industry on the planet. It's super competitive because your good is fungible. It's like everybody else's Bitcoin. Yours are not special. And you make them with the same machines as everybody else. So the only thing that really sets you apart from other miners is the price of electricity. If mining is such a great business, other people will just keep plugging in machines until the collective reward goes down. I mean, your share of the reward goes down for the same amount of work, and then it's a bad business. That drives Bitcoin mining to the cheapest power on the planet. That's why it consumes the cheapest power on the planet, because of its intrinsic design. And that's what drives it to use this excess that nobody else wants. So basically, this mental model you have in your head that if you were to wipe out Bitcoin mining, we would all have this extra energy. That's wrong. You'd have the same energy being produced, except the miners would not be there to pay for your waste. And we see examples of that, like in Norway, this little town that banned Bitcoin mining. Their average utility price went up by $300 a year after they banned the miners, and they were like, "What? Why did this happen? The miners are using less the miners are not stealing their electricity anymore." No, the miners are not paying for their grid connection anymore, for their transmission, for the infrastructure, and so the homeowners have to pay more. No less electricity is being produced. So that's basically the mental models that you have are all wrong. Your mental models of substances and how they're used. Electricity is like it just disappears immediately if it's not used. And we've got a lot of it. Electricity, turns out, is actually abundant around the world. It's just not where and when we want it. So if you want a conservation ethic about electricity, it should be something like, don't use electricity when and where it's scarce. If you're in the middle of a snowstorm in Texas and you turning on your television means that a hospital is going to lose power, don't turn on your television. But if you're in West Texas and electricity prices are negative and the wind is blowing and the sun is shining, use it so you can pay for that infrastructure. That's how the ethics should go.